It's Sunday. Rarely get videos on Sundays. But got a little bit of drive ahead of me. Figure why not pull out the camera and record what we can. It's an evening-ish. It's actually 7:01 exactly. And heading out to my buddy's house again. But like the last time that I went out there, I kind of thought about it and was like, well, camera on my phone overheated like halfway there, and the only way that I could possibly think of solving that issue was by only using the one camera view, the one that you see now. Recording both the front and the back obviously makes my phone work twice as hard. And so because of that, it gets hotter twice as fast. So we have decided to remove it. But if I can, if this will work, I don't know if it will work. Oh, it does. I figured since I got a little bit of a trip here that I could tell some stories. How about that? Sunday will be story time with Matt. I'm doing 60 and a 55 and this car is flying up on me. But yeah, so a main thing I wanted, I was going to tell 2 stories total, and I figured the first one, it's a little sad, but I'd like to tell it because I think it might actually be able to help somebody else out in the long run, because I didn't know what I was doing or what to think, so I didn't react the way I should have, and things probably wouldn't have been a whole lot different if I were to have made the right call. But regardless, I still figure it would be helpful. So I don't know, I couldn't have been too young, I couldn't have been too old. Let's see, she died, I was 21. I'm talking about a grandparent who passed away, by the way. That's why it's kind of sad. But, on my 21st birthday, or like 2 or 3 days after my 21st birthday. But my grandmother, I obviously had 2 of them, and I was very fortunate. People understand there's a lot of people out there that, are either born into a life where your grandparents might already be gone, or B, they die way before you ever get old enough to know who the heck they were, and, that you never meet them. And I feel really bad for that, because it's got to be a really odd feeling or in thought to think that to not have known my grandparents. And like I said, I was very fortunate, whereas both sets of grandparents were still alive by the time I was born. So I had both grandparents, or both grandmas, both grandpas. Now my grandma and grandpa from my mom's side, so my mom and my mom's mom and dad, they got divorced way before I was even thought of. My mom was still, either she just finished high school or she was about to finish high school when they separated. And because of that, they've both lived on their own my entire life. Now, my grandfather, no judgment or anything, because I don't know why or for what reasons, but my grandfather cheated on my grandmother with another woman, and that's why they got divorced. And then after they got divorced, my grandpa only stayed with the woman that he had cheated with my grandma with for like a year or 2 after that, and then they split up, and he'd been single ever since. So one of those things where you kind of think like maybe he kind of realized like he fucked up pretty bad, and that's why he lived alone the rest of his life, because like he threw away the only woman who would have truly loved him until the end, and you know, and stuff like that. I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm speculating, but my grandmother owned the house that I live in, and because it's a duplex, I've explained the duplex, and a lot of people know what it is. And surprisingly, when I said on YouTube like that I lived in a duplex, I actually took it as most people were probably going to make fun of me, because it's like living in half a house. But we own the whole thing. We own both sides, so realistically, it's one big house. It just has a wall that splits it in half. And my grandmother, like I said, she owned it. So my dad, my mom moved to Virginia when, well, this is crazy, right? This is like a whole bunch of stories inside of a story. So maybe we'll just talk about the one story. Who knows? But my mother is terrified of driving, okay? Like, to this day. And a lot of people felt like might have had a reason to why I was so scared to drive and didn't get my license until I was 21. So a lot of people had this feeling that, like, not that she rubbed off on me, but, you know, that because I grew up with a mom who's always been scared to drive, naturally maybe it's what triggered me to initially be scared to drive. What's also what helps with that is getting your license and getting into a car wreck literally about a month after getting your license. Hopefully having it be like mine where it was not my fault. So that really shows you when you're like terrified to drive because you're afraid of getting into a wreck and all that other shit, and then a month later you get into a fucking wreck after being forced to get your license. And then it kind of showed me like, hey, guess what? Even though it could have been a whole lot worse than what it was, it really wasn't that bad. And I was fine, the other people were fine, you know, everything was good. So it was just one of those things where, yes, it can happen, and you try not to have it happen, but just because it happens doesn't always mean every time someone gets in a wreck that you die because of that wreck, you know, just sometimes, and when they're really bad. If the person I hit wouldn't have continued to turn when she saw me like she did, we would have went head on, and that is where things probably would have gotten bad for me and or them, because it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't really great to begin with. But like I said, my dad joined the Coast Guard his senior year of high school. He took his GED, he got out of high school early, and he left for boot camp. Still not 100% sure. I should ask him that. Why he didn't just stay. Like, why he was so anxious to get out to the Coast Guard. Because that's literally the only reason he took his GED. You know, some people back then took it because they felt like they were smarter than the school district and they didn't want to stay in, kind of thing. So they'd take their GED so they could just start working. But it's like, it's one of those things where he didn't start working. Well, I mean, he did kind of, but you know, he went off in the Coast Guard. So it kind of makes me wonder, like, why couldn't he just waited that 1 year? But regardless, he went to the Coast Guard, went through boot camp, did all that shebang crap, and then he got stationed in Virginia Beach, which is awesome. And my mom and my dad moved out there after my mom graduated from high school, because my mom was still in high school, naturally, for that last year that my dad was gone. So, like, every weekend, and I'm not even fucking kidding about this, literally every single weekend, my mom got in her car and drove from Wadsworth, Ohio, all the way to Virginia Beach just to spend the weekend with my dad. And, like, that's awesome. Obviously, if that wouldn't have happened, I'm not even sure if we would still be here. You know, but that was the thing. My mom was so afraid that when my dad left for the Coast Guard that she'd lose him, that she was willing to get in her car and drive 1,500 miles away to a city and state that she's not from just to spend 2 days, which realistically, like they have told us many times, was only realistically like 1 day, because you got to think you got to drive, so if you leave on Friday after school in the afternoon, and then you drive, and it takes, I forget now, I think it's like 13-hour drive to Virginia Beach. But so say you spend the next 13 hours driving. Now, I'm not sure, like I said, I don't know all the details, so I don't know if she stayed in hotels on the way down there, if she just literally got in the car and drove 13 hours because she was actually young, could keep herself awake and stuff. Like, I don't know. But regardless, she would put all these miles in, and so she had 13 hours of drive to get there. She'd get there, fall asleep, wake up, spend, so like say she get there middle of the night on Saturday, or early morning if you want to go that route with it instead. But she would get there, sleep, wake up. My dad obviously lived on base, and they had a whole bunch of friends and stuff that obviously they knew down there. This is back in the day where people partied a lot, and they didn't drug test you when you were in the service. So my dad was a pothead, so was a lot of other guys there, but she would spend the day Saturday hanging out with my dad, go to sleep that night, wake up Sunday morning, they'd go out to breakfast, do something, and then around like early afternoon, she'd have to get her ass in the car and drive all the way back to Ohio, so she was there to go to school on Monday. That's awesome. This guy's got the biggest tow mirrors ever. And so this is all leading up to my story. So she did all that, and then when my dad finished with active service, or well, I guess active when my dad finished the Coast Guard, period, because he had active duty and then he had unactive duty. But when you're how many times can I mess up the word inactive? When you're an inactive soldier, regardless to what branch you're in, you gotta kind of be close. Like, I guess my dad could have come home, but they lived in Virginia for another extra couple of years, because it's one of those things where, in theory, usually this would be like a time of crisis, in the sense of like, we're going to war and we're sending people to war, but we don't have enough people, so we need to re-enlist people who were already enlisted, kind of thing. And so since my dad was inactive or whatever, he would have been picked for that kind of thing. So they stayed around until his inactiveness thing was up, and then once that was done, he moved back to Ohio. When he moved back to Ohio, my uncle was living in the house that I live in now, or the side of the duplex that I live in now, and he was just on his way to move to Delaware. So he moved. My parents moved out to my grandma and grandpa Freeman's house. They lived in a trailer next door to their house for like a year or two, until my uncle was finally moved out and everything, and then my grandma Jay convinced my parents to move into the house with her, and so then my parents did that not too long after. Well, I mean, I'd say not too long, but it was probably a good solid like 5 to 10 years. My parents were one of those people that they always wanted to have kids, that they had always talked about they want to have kids, and then they started trying to have kids, and they couldn't, and they were confused and scared and sad. So they started going to the doctors, and it wasn't like my dad had a low sperm count, or that my oh my god, I straight up just had a fucking heart attack. I was watching smoke roll out of this guy's garage, like hardcore, and I'm like, dude, if I got to, I'll fucking stop and run inside and try to tell these people, like, dude, your fucking house is on fire. But there was a grill inside the garage. Who's dumb enough for that? You deserve to have your house burned down. If you put your grill inside your garage because it's raining, either A, you're gonna burn your fucking house down, you deserve it, or B, you don't need to be fucking grilling. If you can't stand out in the rain and grill, then don't fucking be on a grill. Okay, back to the story. So, yeah, it wasn't that either of my parents had anything physically wrong with them that was preventing them from having children. It was just pure unluckiness, pretty much. They tried and they tried for years, like literally years, which, I mean, they made it. They always made it, even as a kid, they made it sound like that. All they did was ever try, and it would never happen, and it always was so sad for years and years. And I grew up, and I was always like, guys, I mean, it's kind of gross to think about. Obviously, it's my parents, but being as they had to have fucked to get me, it's not like I'm going to sit here and deny the fact that if they're going to sit and tell me for 3 years that they tried to have kids, that just meant for 3 years they had sex non-stop, which is like, damn, like, and you're complaining about that? Like, obviously you want the kids out of it, that's why you're trying to have kids, but, you know, you had sex for 3 years and you're going to make it sound like it's a bad thing. Like, I've always found that funny, but regardless, so, my grandmother, like I said, she lived next door to us in the other side of the duplex, and this is actually, she passed away about 8 or 9 years ago now. It's been quite a while. Like I said, it's actually been 6 or 7 years because I'm 27. I'm almost 20. I'm a month away from being 27, and I was 21 when she died, so it would have been somewhere around there, time frame wise. But this story has more to do with alztimers than it has to do with anything else, even though it's going to be the shortest part of the video because I'm almost here already. So one day, my grandma Freeman was coming to pick me up to take me out to their farm, which I've recorded out at the farm before. Me and my buddy Mike were going to go out there and play and, you know, just do dumb stuff because it's a farm, and who doesn't like to play on farms? And so because of that, I was supposed to, like, my parents, I don't know where my parents went to. A lot of times it was NASCAR races. My parents were huge into NASCAR when I was a kid, so, like, they were always going to NASCAR races, and it could have possibly been they had went to a NASCAR race, and I was supposed to be staying with my grandparents, or my grandma. But regardless, my grandma Jay, I was supposed to be staying at my house. My grandma Jay was going to be, like, watching me. She lives next door, so naturally I'd be home alone, because I should have been old enough that my parents technically trusted me to be home alone, but it was still the fact that I needed somebody there to be, like, a guardian to watch over me in the off chance of something bad happening. So I called my parent, or actually, shit, I don't even know if I called my parents back then, because this is a time before cell phones, so, at least before everybody had a cell phone. So, regardless, I either got a hold of my parents or I didn't. Regardless to whatever happened, I convinced my grandma Freeman to pick me up and letting me stay the night there, and letting Mike stay the night there as well, so we could play there all day Saturday, all day Sunday. So when my grandma come and pick me up, we started driving down the road, and I said, oh, wait, can we go back? And she was like, yeah, why? And I was like, I should probably tell my other grandma that, you know, I'm leaving. And so that way she isn't, like, confused and surprised. That looks like Derek right there, actually. But, so that way she wasn't, like, confused and surprised that I wasn't there. And so I decided to go over and talk to her and see what was, you know, tell her what's up. And she was sitting, we had benches outside of my house, or of our houses, little wooden benches outside. And I walk up, and my grandma's sitting on her bench in front of her house with her jacket on. It's like 90 degrees outside. Her jacket on, her keys in her hand. She's sleeping, and she's sitting in the chair like this. Like, just sitting on that bench in the middle of the day. And when I walked up, I sat down next to her, confused. And I said, Grandma, what are you doing? She didn't answer me. And I was like, what the fuck? And she smelled so bad of pee. Like, you could tell she had peed herself. And the sun had gotten to it, so it was really smelly. And so I kind of nudged her. And I was... so I kind of nudged her, like, you know, hopefully thinking she's not dead. She wakes up. She's all confused. She's like, oh my God, what am I doing? And I'm like, I'm not sure. You just come over to tell you. And you know, I seen that you were sitting here and blah, blah, blah. And I just want to tell you I was leaving. And so she was like, oh, okay. And then she got up and she unlocked her door and she walked inside. But I told her that, and then I got in the car and left. The only reason this story bothers me, and then this is the reason why I wanted to record this video about this story in the first place, is because that was the very first time my grandma had an alztimers attack, and none of us knew that she had it. And like I said, I'm not really sure 100% if I would have caught it or said anything that anything would have changed in the long run, but I kind of regret, you know, I hold this against myself, like I might have had my grandma live a little bit longer if we could have caught it earlier. You know, to my head, I was confused for the longest time until we found out she had Alzheimer's. You know, I could not fathomably understand how she was outside, covered in pee, sleeping on a bench with her keys in her hand. What happened, realistically, was she on Friday had gone to the store. She was driving home, and it kicked in. When she came back, the first time she came back, thank God it happened, she was in 35 minutes west of where we lived. She was going the wrong direction, and she had no idea where she was going. So she got in a U-turned, came all the way home, and when she got home, it clicked in again, and when it clicked in the second time, she forgot what she was doing. She had no idea what she was doing. She's standing on the porch, she's got her keys in her hand, she's like, am I leaving? Am I going? Is this my house? Like, none of that clicked. So she sat down on the bench and figured that she would think about it, and that maybe she would think about the right answer, and that you know, then it would be okay. But like I said, unfortunately on her end, it wasn't okay. So she got up, she went inside. She had sat out that entire night, like all fucking night. You know, and it's really sad to think about. And then, like I said, you know, I wished I could have caught it earlier, or, you know, mentioned to my parents about it. My parents were confused, but like my grandma snapped back and she was perfectly fine for like a couple weeks until it happened again, you know, because that's the problem with Alzheimer's. When it starts happening, it'll click in, you're fucking lost, and then it'll come back and you might be good for a couple months, and then bam, you're gone again. And so, like, explaining to my parents, like, oh, my grandma was acting so weird, and then, like, explain everything to them, and they're like, that's not right, something's wrong. They ask her about it, and she just kind of laughs it off, like, oh, yeah, I'd fallen asleep outside, I accidentally peed, like, you know, made it sound like it wasn't that big of a deal when it really was. And then she was normal for weeks, so it wasn't like she ever did anything else to make us be like, something's wrong, you know. It was like, maybe she had just forgotten, got up, and I don't know, you know, it was confusing. So pretty much my message to the people is, you know, if you have a grandparent that you're close to, and you spend like a lot of days with every day, and, you know, you interact with them, and you know how they are and how they act, if you start noticing something being different, I don't even care how old you are, because like I said, I was old enough to be alone, but young enough that I needed to be watched still. So I mean, like, I had to have been easily 14, 15, somewhere thrown around in there. And, you know, my parents listened to me, you know, but like I said, there wasn't really much else we could do. And then after that, when she started having those issues again, it was more easily caught onable, because my parents were noticing that since I had told them something was off, they were paying more attention and realized things were becoming off. And then we took her to doctors, find out she has Alzheimer's. And she got really bad to the point that it killed her quickly. So, but yeah, so pretty much my advice to the world, it doesn't matter how old you are, realistically, you know, if you start noticing a change, even if it's one time, and then she goes, or this person, grandfather, grandmother, parent, whatever, if they go, you know, X amount of time with being fine, you still need to schedule a doctor's appointment and figure out if that's a possibility, because the sooner you can catch it, the longer you can keep their brain normal for longer. So like my grandma Freeman has Alzheimer's right now. She lives with us. She's got a less severe version, whereas she doesn't remember who she is or who anybody else is. She doesn't even know who I am, and I'm her fucking grandson, for Christ's sake. So there's that. But her brain hasn't made her forget how to eat, how to talk, how to walk, how to live life. She knows how to pee, how to hold her pee. Those are things that her brain can still hold on to, because when we caught it, she is forgetting who she was, but we started giving her medication that kept her from losing the rest. Now, not always does medication keep you from losing the rest, but you have a higher chance of keeping the normal, what left of the brain, there for longer periods of time if you can preventively get them on medicine or whatever kind of situation. My grandma had, she was a good woman, obviously. She did everything in her power to make sure that both my family, my mom and dad and my sister and I were well taken care of my entire life. She literally, like my mom still say to this day, and I understand a lot of parents, a lot of grandparents out there are like this. I'm not trying to say that mine was especially better than anybody else's, but she was literally the type of woman that would have done anything for us. Anything. Like, anything. So, obviously it was really sad to see her go. She, like I said, she lived for a couple years after she had finally got it. She had to go live in a nursing home because, like I said, she had forgotten how to walk, how to talk, started forgetting how to eat, and all this other stuff. And you just can't take care of people when they're like that. So she had to go live in the home, and then she died a couple, probably 2 or 3 years after being in there. I went to Bowling Green because my sister was in college there to celebrate my 21st birthday. And literally the night that we were celebrating that I was super wasted up in Bowling Green, my sister came downstairs and woke me up crying, and I was confused and looking at her like, what's going on? And she threw her arms around me, and I'm still laying down. She threw her arms around me, and she's like, Grandma died, and I don't deal well with emotions in front of people and stuff kind of thing. So I just kind of sat there, and so she got up and left. In a fit of anger, like I did that to spite her or something, but it was like I just was drunk, hungover, and tired. So like my brain was like, she's dead? Well, let's go to sleep and think about this in the morning. So I tried to go back to sleep and I couldn't, and then I got up about 2 hours after that, went downstairs. My sister was still awake crying. I told her I was leaving, and me and my buddy got into his car, and we drove 3.5 hours home so I could be with my family since my grandmother had just passed away. But yeah, so I was just saying, keep an eye out for, whatever possibly could happen, or if you notice anything that could be happening, because, you never know when shit might go wrong.
Can I say hi?
Yeah, you come around this way. My bestest friend Derek would like to say hello to the vlog.
Hey guys. Hey.
Hey guys, this is Derek.
What's up, y'all?
He's gonna be...
Happy Sunday Fun Day.
Yeah.
Ski bee!
I was actually just ironically telling
them how I'm gonna be famous?
No, I was telling them how my grandmother got Alzheimer's and died. I'm trying to explain how the early stages of catching people with Alzheimer's to hopefully prevent other people from losing grandparents too fast.
Oh man, spend time with your family, people.
Yes.
It's very important.
Very
Nobody's gonna be
important.
around forever.
And I was just saying that this woman would have done anything for us. And, I was so young when she passed away that it really didn't, click in, how gone she was.
In my head, dude.
Right.
And it still sucks.
Right.
About it.
Right.
Damn you, Matt.
I know, man. It
Happy
sucks.
Sunday, people.
Okay, guys. I'm going to go have fun now. Alright, guys. If you like this video, a like would be much appreciated. If you're new to the channel, you should subscribe to keep up with awesome content. If you're already part of the channel, you can share the video and show other people how awesome this Sunday Fun Day adventure was for you. It was 30 minutes. My phone recorded 30 minutes without dying, so I think I did it the right way. And if you want, you could leave me a comment below telling me if you've ever had a similar situation or story where, a grandparent of yours had alztimers or just something else that unfortunately took them too early from you. Goodbye, people.